So for all my complaining, and here we are in 1835 again, about lack of interesting choices, you run into one right away. In the stock round, this player who lost the bay earlier in the game has basically the option of taking it back. 30% is held by the owner of it. He could end up just buying 10% more, and he's got the presidency. Or he can start a new company, which is the Badish. Now he's going to go ahead with the Badish because, frankly, the Bay is pretty badly hosed. He's made his money off of it. He doesn't feel too destroyed by the fact that it was taken away from him. As long as he can get some corporation to work his trains off of, feels fairly comfortable. And the Badish seems like a better choice at this point in the game than the Bay. So here we are in the operating round. Remember, the BOD has just shown up. I ran all the miners. Not a lot of movement there. A little bit of extension up north. But otherwise, everybody's pretty much stuck. So, for example, the 6 company had enough money to buy a 2+2 train, but it's really not worth it. And he can buy something off the Bay for a lot of money or something instead. Right now, the 2+2 doesn't gain him anything. What he really needs is at least a 3+3 to hit 3 major cities. 2+2 would be valuable if he could get the connection here, but it's just not. He's only got one exit, so if he's going to buy it, he's going to buy it off the Bay, not off of the bank pull. Speaking of which, 40% of the Bay in there, that's going to be producing good money when it runs. It's not going to have to swallow. It's going to be able to have a nice income there. And I guess that's about it. I just wanted to show a little bit of the board there. Okay, well, we had our phase change, but let me look into what happened. First of all, the Bay kept their big trains, and they're still not running them all, and pushed forward. They're up to 19 a share now, but their other option would have been to use the extra train pushing into here, and maybe put a dot here, I guess, so they can't put it here. But it seems like a waste of a dot, and as long as this is running out the way it is, it feels like this is a pretty good stock holding, actually. So why push it a little harder? Going over to the Saxon, they made the decision not to buy an additional train. They built their little loop, making 7 a share or whatever. Not great money, but they don't want to invest too much of the company's capital. That throws things over to the Badish, and the Badish has problems. They could not lay track because they were expecting a 3 train to be available, or to be out. So they had to spend some $300, and they don't have a lot of money on 2 trains. They couldn't even make a deal over with their miner company without getting that 3 train out. So they went back and they got no track because they couldn't lay anything. And they're feeling a little bit like maybe they shouldn't have started a company on this turn. But now we're on the stock round, and Birdie's sitting over here. This guy has probably enough cash, etc., that he can start the work, which is what's available. Or, if he doesn't want that, he could buy up Prussian shares, or he could buy up valuable Bayer shares. But you start buying those and it stops paying out, I get the feeling. Finally, does he just want to hold these? Probably not. It's great if you own the company, but if you're not going to hold the company, it doesn't seem worth having. Okay, so we ended the stock round. We're going to go into a dual operating round now because 3 trains have been bought. And stuff happened. This guy had priority. He dumped the Saxon and started buying up the Wirt, which starts where? Down here. This guy has priority. He didn't have the cash, even with his shares, to be able to start the next company. In the wrong order. Which is the Hessian. That's on, what, the 3rd line, right? It's on the same line as the Wirt, yeah. So that can be bought probably by him. No one else was able to really, no one saw any advantage to getting priority anywhere else. He's going to have that option. We did see all of the Bay shares get eaten up. 50% by the president and the rest by people to his right, which isn't the best place to be. Of course, let's say he does rape and dump the Bay on this next guy. What does he do with the money? You know, I mean, just buy up Prussian shares? Because this guy is going to get the only company that's available at that point. And until 50% of the Hessian's out, it's never, there's not going to be anything else to buy. And it gets worse than that. It's not just 50% of the Hessian. He's got to get rid of all 3 of these. All the shares have to have come out of the pool for the next line of companies to even show up. Painful. Might require different thinking, whatever, I don't know. So let's see what else we got. The guy with the guy with the Badish increased his holdings of that. Again, just trying to get the money into his corporation as well as getting the shares out, etc. It's a weird. It's definitely a different flavor of game than I'm used to. And then let me see. I don't think there's anything else of too much. One thing is, no one bought up any Prussian shares. It's always hard to tell when is the time when you have to do it, and it's, you know, when somebody decides it's time, basically. But right now, it's pretty clear they're not going to be making money for some time. And you could, if you can be holding good shares that are making tons of money, well, it seems kind of foolish to buy the Prussian shares at this point. All right, so we'll go into that dual operating round. And here in the operating round, we're seeing some of the machinations that take place in this game, or in any XX really. But here, because you have multiple companies with the miners, you're allowed to do this a little quicker than most. Or, yeah. So over here with the one company, they laid some track that works well, in their opinion, at this point with what the body are. They're planning on line track. They're planning on track lays with the Badish in conjunction with it, since he's running both. But he spent $75 to buy the 2+2 train off the Badish. He's got more running power for his trains. Gets half the cash, and of course he gets half the cash running the Badish as well. But at this point, he thinks the Badish can do better with just one train, and his little company can do fine with 2. One thing that I'm a little disturbed about is these little miners. The Bayern and the Nuremberg Firth aren't too bad. The Pfalzbahn is linked to this space. And that's just kind of tough to remember. So as soon as the track is laid here, the Pfalzbahn is going to go away. But other than that, I mean, it's a minor thing. It's just normally there's like on the 1830 and the ones directly based on it. There's some kind of symbol on the space to tell you, hey, this one's kind of important. I'd like that. Just to remind me, hey, something's going out of business when this gets laid. Okay. So in other news with the miners, a couple of the others bought their second train just recently, are making good use of it now. We got some pretty decent runs beginning to form for these things. And finally, one that can't really use the extra train. Could have used a 2+2, I guess. Not very effectively. But spent, I don't remember, 150 something bucks or whatever from the Bay to buy a train that the Bay's not really using. They could, but they hadn't, they weren't committed, and getting the extra cash into the Bay at this point might be valuable. There's a good chance that the two trains aren't going to last very much longer, so it seems like the time to do it when there's one that's not really being employed. So that's the end of the first operating round. Just take a look at what people did. The Bay extended its positioning up into Frankfurt, and yeah, they want to make their way north. It's expensive to put a dot there, but I think that means they were going to try to play in this area more than aiming for Berlin. Berlin's a tough game for them to make, as is Hamburg. So, just saying right off, I'm not going to make it there. Now, of course, they could have tried to connect up here and put a dot here. And they may still do that. It cost a fortune, but it may be a decent move. Unfortunately, their track that goes this way doesn't work, so they had to play this dot first. Okay, let's look. The Sash opening its way up towards Berlin. The Wirt starts up and buys itself its train, doesn't produce anything. And the Badish hooked itself into Alsace-Lorraine and, is pulling the big money, 80 bucks off that for now. That's going to dry up as soon as that ends. And now we start and do it all again. So the Bay keeps spending big money. Grabbed a dot up here, spent 50 bucks to build this. It's running low. He's going to swallow $270. He's got a huge run, and this is the time to do it, really. He might do it again if he gets another shot. So after the Bay, the Saxon hooked up and grabbed its dot in Berlin and bought itself a handful of trains. Some pretty decent ones. That 270 3+3. That's kind of a white elephant. That's really expensive for a non-permanent train that's just adding boinker-doinkers that maybe don't matter too much. But he needed another train, and that one actually works pretty well for this company. He's going to use it on it. Because he makes good money off of that. Alright. Now we go on to the Baden and the Wirt. Well, the Baden and the Wirt both kind of hosed, and this I kind of remember as usual. Only the Hessian was valuable out of the second tier. The Baden, some track lays, especially by the Bay, ended up cutting them off, and now they're going to try to swing around and slide through here. But there's not a lot of area they can advance to, those token lays, etc. And usually the Hess beats them out anyhow. So they were always the weaker options. The Wirt didn't even want to go north. It looks so ugly up there. I mean, they'll go eventually, but they're thinking they'll let the Baden pay to build the track and then try to get sloppy seconds because they can't do any better than that. Now here, they're hooking into the Bay's home area, which the Bay mainly has abandoned because it's so unvaluable compared to what they're building into. But there's just nowhere else to go. And we're going to lose the race to this space. Although that eventually goes to a double dot, so that'll that'll be a little richer. That's the end of the operating round. We go to a stock round, and one thing we notice is this guy's holding the train. He's got the shot at the Hessian, and he's also got a decent amount of shares of the Prussian, so he probably will not try to go for control of the Prussian at this point. But it's always a thought, especially since I believe the 2 is the controlling. The 2 is the controlling company of it. It might be worth trying to assure himself control of the Prussian. Hard to tell.